Stan Rogers was a powerhouse in folk music, known for some of the most iconic albums like Fogarty's Cove, From Fresh Water, and Home in Halifax. With his soulful music and storytelling, he mesmerized audiences globally and left a deep impression on the world of music. But just as he was returning from a month-long tour on June 2nd, 1983, fate took a cruel turn. Join us as we cover the remarkable life of Stan Rogers, from his rumored heroic deeds to the chilling last moments which left the entire country in shock. Stan Rogers was actually born as Stanley Allison Rogers on November 29, 1949, in Hamilton, Ontario, and spent most of his childhood in his mother's hometown, Nova Scotia, particularly in Canso. Little Stan always used to listen to varieties of singers, and it came as no surprise when he started showing a deep interest in music. According to his loved ones, he began singing shortly after he could talk. Stan used to practice on his guitar for hours daily, and it didn't take him long before he learned to play guitar by himself. Soon, Stan started taking interest in folk music, while listening to country icons like Wilf Carter and Hank Snow. And this early exposure helped him later while attending Salt Fleet High School, where he started meeting people with the shared interest in folk music. That said, Stan initially started his music journey with rock and roll, and after high school, he completely shifted his focus to folk music, where he started playing at some local venues. In 1969, at the age of 20, he officially started his career where he worked at Ontario and Maritime Folk Club and festival circuits, while also looking for potential record labels to release his songs. That moment came in 1970, when Stan signed a deal with RCA Records and recorded singles like Here's to You, Santa Claus, and The Fat Girl Rag. That said, he soon realized that his vision didn't actually align with the record label, where they wanted him to become Canada's answer to renowned singer and actor Burl Ives. So after this unsuccessful contract, Stan kept working hard and honing his skills for the next few years, while also taking part in local venues and radio shows. And this hard work eventually paid off in 1977, when he dropped his debut album, Fogarty's Cove. With some of the iconic songs like Barrette's Privateers and 45 Years, the album performed really well, where majority of the sales came from his live concerts that followed after. Not stopping there in 1978, Stan, alongside his brother, established his recording company, Fogarty's Cove Music, which was managed by their mother Valerie. Surprisingly, the label released multiple albums with The Friends of Fiddler's Green and Grit Laskin. In the years that followed, Stan had made quite a name for himself by releasing albums like Turnaround, Between the Breaks, Live, and Northwest Passage. Plus, during this time period, he also started doing live performances, where in just a few years, he had performed in over 100 events across the United States, Canada, and UK. In the year 1983, during the month of May, Stan Rogers began his tour, where he performed at McCabe's, followed by Kerrville Folk Festival in Texas, where he reportedly performed for 2 days with his fellow Canadian artists Connie Caldor and Al Simmons. And after this month-long successful tour, where Stan was at its career's peak, he was eagerly waiting to get back to his home. That said, just a few days later, tragedy would strike in a way no one expected. On June 2nd, 1983, at around 4 p.m. local time, Stan boarded Air Canada Flight 797 from Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. The weather was reported normal at that time, and the flight was estimated to reach the Montreal Dorval International Airport in 5 hours, with a stopover in Toronto. And approximately 25 minutes later, his flight took off, where everything seemed to be going normally in the initial hours. But after what seemed like 3 hours into their journey, at around 7 p.m. local time, some of the passengers smelled a burning odor coming from the back, which was later confirmed to be coming from the rear restroom. They didn't take any time and immediately informed the flight attendant, where she saw the smoke coming from under the restroom door. Upon opening the door slightly, she saw the light gray smoke, which had filled the entire room. That said, because of the low visibility, she couldn't pinpoint the source of smoke or even the fire. When the chief flight attendant on board realized the gravity of the situation, he quickly informed everyone to get on the front side of the plane. He then went to the back and tried to open the door, where according to him, it felt hot on the touch. Meanwhile, the passengers, including Stan, were given wet towels to cover their mouths in order to prevent them from the toxic gases. The chief attendant carefully opened the door and reportedly saw the thick black smoke. And even though he couldn't see the source of fire, he sprayed the whole interior with a CO2 fire extinguisher. That said, his attempt didn't work, and by a few more minutes, the entire backside of the plane had engulfed in smoke, which made the situation even more terrifying. The pilots were told about the situation, where they immediately decided to do an emergency landing. For the horrifying 13 minutes, everyone waited for the plane to land, where some of the passengers reportedly even fainted upon inhaling the smoke. At around 7:20 p.m. local time, the plane landed at the Northern Kentucky International Airport in Boone County, Kentucky. Ironically, due to the loss of electrical power, the anti-skid mechanism wasn't working, which blew up the 4 tires while landing. By that time, the cabin had been completely filled with thick black smoke, and reportedly 10 passengers had already fainted. According to some people, Stan was barely managing to stay conscious, and many believed he would have made it alive as he was seated at the front row seat. But something went terribly wrong when the door finally opened. During those seconds, 5 crew members and 18 passengers got out, before the outside air came rushing in. About 90 seconds later, as the outside oxygen came in contact with the fire, it increased the intensity, which caused a big explosion, completely burning the 23 passengers. Stan, who was seated near the door, couldn't make it outside for some unknown reasons, and lost his life at the age of 33. Since the incident had happened in the USA, NTSB was quickly notified, where they started their investigation. The burnt bodies of Stan and other passengers were retrieved and sent for further autopsy. And although the majority of the plane had burned by the fire, the investigators got their hands on the cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder, which was apparently in good condition. According to their initial findings, at around 6:51 p.m. local time, during the dinner service in the plane, the pilots on board heard a popping sound, which they believed to be from the circuit breaker in the rear restroom which had tripped. In most of the cases, it is common for circuit breakers to trip, given that many people use the restroom after lunch or dinner. That said, their initial attempt to reset the circuit breaker failed, and after 8 minutes at 6:59 p.m., the breaker button completely broke while they were trying to reset again. The strange part was, neither the flight attendant nor the officer in charge saw the flames or its source, which many believe would have come from the trash bin. Further into the flight, the main caution light in the cockpit illuminated, which meant the main bus had lost the electrical power. Plus, the investigators also heard pilots' dialogues where one of them said, "I don't like what's happening. I think we better go down, okay?" After reviewing records from the Air Traffic Control Center at Indianapolis, they found that at around 7:06 p.m. local time, the pilot made the emergency contact, informing them about the electrical issue at the plane. At 7:08 p.m., the plane reportedly lost emergency electrical power, where they switched to battery power quickly. Indianapolis Air Traffic Controller further said that they received a Mayday signal at around the same time, where they immediately gave clearance, realizing the gravity of the situation. After the tragedy, the 18 survivors were quickly rushed to the hospital, where 3 survivors received major injuries, 13 received minor injuries, and 2 were uninjured. According to some of the witnesses, a tall, bald man pushed them out of the plane, where many believed it would have been Stan. And as the time went on, more and more people started saying that they were rescued by some tall man. However, this also affected negatively, where many raised the questions that how is it possible for a man to save so many people in the time frame of 90 seconds? Plus, the authenticity of these testimonies were never made public by NTSB, which led some to believe that Stan might have been dead before even the doors opened. The autopsy report of Stan indicated the primary cause of death to be smoke inhalation and burns. Also, the toxicology report indicated the high level of cyanide, fluoride, and carbon monoxide in the blood, which was from staying too long in the smoke-filled room. NTSB further found out the wires in the rear restroom had insulation stripped away, which could have triggered the fire. In the end, the crew of the Flight 797 were honored by multiple organizations for their heroic act of saving as many people as they could. In the upcoming days, Stan was cremated and his remains were scattered across the coast of Nova Scotia. Interestingly, his music, which was not that widely known outside the folk world, reached millions of people after the stories of his heroic deeds spread. In fact, according to some rumors, his last words were, "Let me help you," which increased his popularity even further, and many people even called him Saint Stan. That said, these stories lack the crucial evidence from the survivors and even the NTSB. Plus, according to Stan's brother Garnet Rogers, such rumors were just overactive imagination of people trying to create their own stories, without any concrete evidence. That being said, the entire country, as well as the folk music world, mourned the loss of one of the most promising talents. Many people gave their tributes from all over the world, including Pete Seeger, a well-renowned American folk musician, who praised him as one of the most talented singers and songwriters. Though his career was cut short, his legacy has only grown through his authentic storytelling and songs that he had left behind. Stan Rogers, without a doubt, had played a major contribution in Canadian culture, and in the process, he ended up becoming the icon who inspired many artists in the future. So, if you like the story and want to watch more like this, then make sure to check the rest of our channel. Also, if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that you never miss any future uploads from us. That's all for today, and we will see you in the next video.